Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I am April Mucci with lakelandmom.com. Today, I am talking with Dr. Eskowitz from Lakeland Regional Health about the COVID-19 vaccine, specifically for 16 and 17-year-olds. So welcome to Dr. Eskowitz, and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And tell me quick, your position at Lakeland Regional Health, what you do.
So I am my administrative title, my official position is Chief Quality Officer and Chief Medical Informatics Officer. So I do a lot with hospital quality and administration and making sure people are safe and up to best practice here at the hospital. By training, I am an emergency physician and I still practice in our emergency department and have been doing so for almost 20 years now.
Wow, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I may have seen you. I've been there only a few times, but so a quick introduction for anybody watching. The COVID vaccine is now available to 16 and 17-year-olds. And I know from talking to a lot of parents, moms and dads and grandparents on a regular basis, that parents have a lot of questions when it comes to deciding whether or not to have their 16 and 17-year-old kids vaccinated. And there is also the possibility that down the road that will be extended to a younger age group. So today we're having a quick conversation just to get some of your most pressing questions answered. We had a lot of readers send us questions. And so with that, we are going to get answers for you from a trusted local source from Lakeland Regional Health. So with that, we'll jump right in. Can you talk briefly about the three different vaccines and who is currently eligible for each one?
So the three vaccines, I think and I think most people know what the names of the vaccines that have been out there, but the two ones that are most alike are the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine. They are the mRNA vaccines. So they operate in kind of a different way than any vaccine has operated in the past. You get an initial injection, and then you get a booster injection for Pfizer 21 days later, for Moderna 28 days later. And then the third vaccine type is the J&J vaccine, which we know has gotten a lot of press recently, and that is a single injection. And that has a little bit of a different mechanism of the way it works. All three vaccines, though, appear to be very, very effective and very, very safe. For the purpose of Lakeland moms, though, the only vaccine that's currently available for 16 and 17-year-olds is the Pfizer vaccines. The Moderna vaccine is still 18 and over. Moderna is doing a number of trials for teens and younger populations, but Pfizer is currently approved for 16 and 17-year-olds.
Okay. Another question is whether the dosage for teens is different or if it's the same as what adults are receiving.
No, so the dosage for teens in the currently available Pfizer vaccine is no different than the adult dose. It's the same microgram dosage. I think it was felt when they did the trials that the physiology of a 16 and 17 and 18-year-old is the same as an adult. So they use the same dosage. Now, I know there are trials being that was just submitted to the FDA for the 12 to 15 age group. And then there's some trials that are going on for younger ages. And that I'm unaware of what dosages they used. But for all intents and purposes, they treat the older kids, even though we might not think of them as older kids at times, just like adults.
Right. You and I talked about that before we started, just that, by the time you're 16, 17, 18, even though there still are babies that physically they're pretty much adults at that point. Obviously, we've heard over the past year that when children and teenagers, if they do get the virus, that they don't typically get as sick as adults or elderly people, and they don't typically require hospitalization. So why is it that they still need to be vaccinated?
So a couple of reasons. So one, the most obvious is once they're vaccinated, it is clearly being shown now that it is much more difficult to transmit COVID. So while so vaccinating certainly your older teens who seem to be getting it at a fairly high rate at this time. Um, and in other countries, we're seeing, especially with the variants that are popping up, some older kids are actually getting fairly sick with COVID. The most important reason is that they can't transmit it to their parents or to their grandparents or people in the community or other classmates that they're with and surrounded by, or teachers who may be who may have some underlying conditions, and people who they encounter every day. And as a community, this is a very mobile population. Those 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds are out all the time. They're with friends. They're at sporting activities. They're very social entities. And if we are trying to achieve that concept of herd immunity, that protecting the vulnerable and protecting each other from transmitting COVID, really burning this out and getting back to the life I know we all want. They're really an important age group to make sure that that we could decrease the spread. And kids themselves, it's surprising. So some kids actually have some underlying conditions that can make them quite vulnerable to COVID and can get quite sick. What we're seeing now in Europe is that some of these hospitalized groups actually appear to be skewed younger and younger as time goes on. So it's a little concerning. Certainly, we haven't seen that here yet to this degree, but it's concerning as this thing goes on. Will kids become more affected? And the other reason is we don't know the long-term effects that COVID could have on your body. We do know with adults, there's this whole population called long haulers or long COVID. And when you study some very healthy people who didn't get very sick, months and months out, many of them still have symptoms, and many of them are struggling with lots of other COVID-related issues as a result of getting the virus. And the primary way of preventing that is preventing getting the virus in the first place. And our best means of doing that is a vaccine.
Right. Along those same lines, as far as side effects, I know you just talked about some of the side effects of having COVID itself, especially some of the long-term ones that are unknown. What are the COVID vaccine side effects, short-term and or long-term, that you're aware of?
So the short-term side effects, especially with the 2-dose regimen, is that after that first dose, just about everybody will complain that their arm hurts. Yep. And pain at the injection site is the number one complaint we get. Some people actually get some systemic effects after the first shot, maybe some fatigue, they feel a little run down, they don't feel like themselves, mild headaches, things like that. The second dose, however, can, not to sugarcoat it, can make some people on the sick side. And clearly we've seen the myalgias and extreme fatigue, those muscle aches and body aches and shaking and flu-like stuff, and nausea and headaches, and even worse, pain at the injection site, people getting fevers, things along those lines. And really, it's affected more some people more than others. Usually occurs somewhere around 8 to 12 hours after that second shot, can be longer, and usually clears up within a day to two, and in general is very well tolerated. And I think, although can be very unpleasant, a very small price to pay. Now, no one has seen, for the most, but no one's really been able to establish true long-term side effects with the COVID vaccine. I know there are lots of reports out there, and there are things that are actually getting investigated. And just like with what's happening with this J&J vaccine right now, but clearly we know there are long-term effects with COVID. Yeah. There appear to be very few, if any, long-lasting effects with the COVID vaccine.
Yes, I got my first vaccine 2 weeks ago, and the only side effect was some pain in my arm, and we'll go back in 2 more weeks, and I've cleared my calendar for a day just in case, but I've heard reports from it being no issues at all to, 1 day of of headaches and muscle aches. So,
Yeah, some people feel great, and I'm jealous of them.
right. Yes.
Some people do not.
I tell you, it is worth it to me to be back around my grandmother and aunts and uncles who I haven't seen in a while. So I'm excited about that. One question too that was asked is about younger kids. And I know you mentioned it earlier that there are currently trials. Um, do you have an estimate of when and if the vaccine age limit might be lowered?
So I know the 12 to 15 vaccine group has been submitted. That's been submitted to the FDA for emergency use, and they're reviewing it. I do not know if there is a timeline for that to come out. And I know there are lots of trials going on with both with all the companies in the younger age groups. And I think they're in stage 1 or stage 2 right now. And that usually takes some months to roll through. And
Right.
the short answer is I'm not sure exactly
Okay.
when.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we have parents who sent in questions, and I got that one more than once. So for some people who have already had COVID, why do they need the vaccine? Adults and or 16 and 17-year-olds.
So we know that one, you can get reinfected at some point, although it's unusual. You can get reinfected, especially after that 3-month mark. Your immunity starts to wane and kind of goes down that curve to the point where eventually you have no detectable antibodies. So like Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, we know they've both come out publicly. They were some of our first celebrities to get COVID. Both of them now, we can't detect we can't detect antibodies at all. So we lose immunity over time. And interestingly, the way the vaccine's designed, it actually appears to mount a stronger immune response than actually getting COVID itself. So that's another benefit. And it's a way of stretching your immunity out. You wait for get that natural infection. You wait maybe around 3 months or so when the antibodies start to wane, and then you get an injection, and maybe you're covered again for another, who knows what it'll be, 9 months, 12 months, a year and a half. Hopefully sooner.
Yes, I know. One thing we didn't address, but that's still being tested as far as how long the vaccine is effective and whether or not there will be booster shots or repeat vaccines down the road, and that's to be determined.
Yep.
Let's talk about rumors quick. I'm sure you and I have both heard the rumor that the COVID vaccine causes people to be sterile or unable to have children. Can you address that rumor?
So well, it's a rumor is what it is.
Right.
And I know it's one provider really started this, going out on the internet and talking about a certain protein in the placenta, and that people may be mounting an immune response against their placenta. And none of that is either true or proven. And we've seen plenty of people who have had the vaccine that have gotten pregnant, and plenty of people who have gotten COVID that have gotten pregnant. So there's no evidence to support that at all at this point.
Right. And I have seen very technical descriptions online as well of how the vaccine was developed and formed. And again, a conversation for people who want the technical details, but we'll share some links to those reliable sources as well. For kids, teens, adults, anyone who has an underlying health condition and is worried or is being treated for something and is worried about getting the vaccine, what should they do as far as talking to a healthcare provider or getting their questions answered if they're worried about side effects from the vaccine?
Well, I would absolutely call their healthcare provider and have a good discussion with the parent and their personal physician. And most physicians appear to be fairly well informed on everything COVID related and vaccine related. And certainly they can, there are resources they could go to if they have further questions. The CDC has an excellent website, and there's a body of the CDC that takes care of vaccinations that updates very frequently, that there's a wealth of information on. So I trust in the community physicians and how they're advising their patients and their families. And we all need to do this together and just use the best information possible going forward.
Right. You answered my next question, which was about reliable sources of information. So we'll include some links to those as well. Do you have any suggestions for either teens who are interested in the vaccine and wanting to talk to their parents about it, or parents who have strong opinions and want to talk to their teenagers about getting the vaccine? Any tips or suggestions?
I think they're both. I think teens have access to the same information parents do now with social media, and I've seen lots of on all the different social media platforms, lots of chatter and people talking about the pros and cons. And I think the best way to go about it is to have an open dialogue and to make individual decisions based on what's best for the family, and really consult their physicians and listen to healthcare leaders in the community, and please listen to reliable sources and not so-and-so on Instagram or TikTok or whoever who's, telling these stories, which need to be usually are just some type of for clickbait or, sensationalized, and often they're not validated or grounded in anything real. And just to have an open, honest dialogue. And I think that this should be encouraged by teens to parents and parents to teens alike. Mm-hmm.
Anything else that you would like to share with the community as far as the vaccine in general, the vaccine for teens, anything to wrap it up?
No, nothing. I think we hit most of the major points, and I think it's just such an important way to get back to keeping our community safe and going to living the way we want to live again, and winning this war on COVID. I know it's been a very, very tough year for many people.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully we answered some parents' questions. If anyone watching has additional questions that we didn't cover, please leave those in the comments or get in touch with us, and we will do our best to get answers from Dr. Eskowitz or another reliable source at Lakeland Regional Health. So thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Happy to speak to you.